Sam Hauser makes it rain from deep, and the Boston Celtics, they beat the Hornets last night. We will discuss some rolling trends with Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller. What have they been doing lately? We discuss it all today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's Doug Branson. It's been a while since I've done that. You're right. Been a while since we had the Game Time. That's Doug Branson. Follow him on his substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. There you can find also his subtext information. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3, Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Boston, they beat the Hornets 118-104 last night. Doug, let's go right into it. What will we find on your website, everyhornetsboxscore.com? What were some of your main takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Clifford said it best. They didn't get their defense set really the entire game, and the Boston Celtics were able to push the pace even without Jaylen Brown and get into the Hornets defense before everybody was back, and they moved the ball quickly. A lot of those possessions went to Kristaps Porzingis, who was able to get fouled, get behind the defense, and the Hornets were playing small anyway because they didn't have Nick Richards, who was out with a foot issue. It doesn't seem like a serious thing, but he was out, and so they go to Grant Williams, they go to Marquise Bolden off the bench, and the Hornets just really weren't ready defensively. They weren't equipped defensively. Some of those possessions went to Sam Hauser, who was doing some fill-in duty for Jaylen Brown, and he had 20-plus points. He hit a ton of threes. And the Hornets, I thought that Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges and Grant Williams really helped to shoot the Hornets back into the game, especially in the third quarter. But eventually, Jason Tatum put the foot on the throat and ended their chance of a win.
Well, on top of Sam Hauser just going flames, right? Like, how about 24 minutes for Sam Hauser off of the bench? All you Cavs fans, step up. That's Virginia Cavaliers fans, by the way. 25 points, 9 of 13 from Sam Hauser, but 7 of 11 from beyond the arc. Even added 5 rebounds, which is, impressive from him. So he was a huge part. And if you look at just their 3-point shot making, it wasn't the most amazing percentage of the world, but they took 53. They took so many shots from deep, and they hit 19 of them. And so at 36%, when you take that many threes, it's going to be tough to compete with, especially if you struggle with your own offensive efficiency. And you're right. Like, the Hornets did hit some shots from deep as well. They actually got to the rim. They didn't shoot nearly as well when they did get there, but they were shooting themselves into it a little bit. Grant Williams, nice night shooting. Same thing from Brandon Miller, 7 of 15, 3 of 6 from distance. Miles Bridges, not great from 3-point range, but still, you're right. Like, Miles, all those 3 guys, 23 for Grant, 19 for Brandon Miller, 26 for Miles. Those were your guys offensively with some help from Vasa. But yeah, it feels like even Steve Clifford, after these types of games, when he talks about the games against the great competition, which Boston is certainly a favorite to win the East and possibly a favorite to win the NBA title. This is when we get measured Cliff, unless you really give a terrible effort. Like, Cliff is he's going to do, what do you want me to do? Like, we've seen him talk about it that way. And like, he had some problems with the way that his defense wasn't set, what you talk about, but like, it's the Boston Celtics. And I think Steve Clifford, when he plays those types of teams, he keeps it in perspective pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this was a case of them playing really good competition, but I don't think they were as composed as they've been over the past couple of games. And again, if you want to lay in the excuse, hey, they're missing even more guys with Nick Richards out, that sent sort of a ripple effect through the lineup. And you could really tell that with their matchups and what they were trying to do to take Jason Tatum away. Because every time they switched, it ended up like man on Tatum, and Tatum just ate that mismatch alive. And then they had Miller on Tatum a lot, and Miller is not ready to guard Jason Tatum, just like newsflash, that's not ready to happen yet. But that's the ripple effect of it. Like, you love Miles Bridges on Tatum, and the few possessions that Miles Bridges did guard Tatum 1v1, he was able to stop him. In fact, got a turnover, I believe in the third quarter, that led to a pretty nice yam by Bridges in transition. That's the matchup you want, but it's not the matchup you can really have because you are undersized everywhere. You've got to have Miles Bridges kind of roaming around the paint and playing the 4 position. So it's really tough for the Hornets right now. So, yeah, but there were things that they could control, particularly, I think, at the beginning of the fourth quarter. If they wanted to make this a slightly more competitive game, then they should not have come out in the fourth quarter completely disorganized and allowing Sam Hauser to get wide open from 3. A lot of it was miscommunication between Davis Bertans and Brandon Miller. Those guys can't, I don't know, past couple of games I've noticed this. These two guys, when they're on the floor together, for some reason cannot get on the same page about how they're supposed to guard, particularly when the Hornets have to double and it sends, everybody else in rotation. Just weird stuff, like Sam Hauser getting wide open after he'd already hit a ton of threes in the corner for 3 more at the beginning of that fourth quarter. Just some inexcusable stuff that happened and a lot of excusable stuff that happened, and the Hornets lose another one. They get closer to that first overall pick odds.
They do, which some people maybe like. It's something we haven't really talked a whole lot about, but I don't even expect us to a lot just because, I mean, obviously when we get to the draft, I guess, but this draft is so up in the air, man. Like it is a wild card, unlike last year where we knew who the first 3 picks were going to be. And we knew who the first pick was going to be. We knew who second and third was going to be. We really knew who 4th and 5th were going to be for the most part. And then it got to be a little more wild. I have zero clue what's going to happen. So you're right. I have no clue, but they do get closer to that. You had some thoughts?
Well, this is the perfect scenario for Tankanistas, right? Because the Hornets could try, and they are, I think, trying as hard as they can to win, and they will still lose because of the level of competition that they're playing. You really can't even go out and get embarrassed because of the level of competition they're playing. It's not like they're losing these games to the Wizards or something. So they could try as hard as they can, and I think in general they are. But when you've got to play, Marquise Bolden, who wasn't even getting time from his previous team in Milwaukee. I mean, they got him off the G League heap.
Yeah.
And he's out there trying, but there's a reason why on a team that for the past, multiple months has only had one true center on the roster. There's a reason why Bolden has not been able to get on the floor, and it's because generally on defense, he has no idea where to be. And so you're not going to get playing time. I don't care how big you are. You're not going to get playing time over Grant Williams at that small ball 5 position. And so, yeah, Bolden was out there giving it 100, but he just doesn't know where to be on defense, and he was getting punished for that. Other stray observations, Pokusevski back from an illness. He looked a little shaky, looked a little hesitant, was not taking open shots, was missing some stuff at the rim. He did get a foul early in the game that got Clifford teed up. It was so funny because he went after the ref, and you could see on the replay, the ref was like, Cliff, come on, Cliff. He was giving him, he was like, dude, I'm about to tee you up. And Clifford didn't care. He said, I'm going to go defend my precious Poku. But Poku, listen, if you're going to play Pokusevski, there's only a couple of games left that you're auditioning for the Hornets or for whoever. If you are open, buddy, you got to take the shot. You got to take the shot.
It's for your own career, man. Speaking of some careers and guys that are trying to get as much playing time as possible, Poku's going to have to maybe not overtake, but when Brandon Miller is out for some reason, Miles Bridges, Poku has to try to figure out how to capitalize on some of that. And with any of these injuries that anybody might suffer, hopefully those guys don't. But if Poku, wants to provide this team some depth, then you're right. He's going to have to figure out, okay, this is my role on the team. Speaking of Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller, let's go to their game and what they've been doing here in the last couple of weeks or so. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let's get with some of the latest trends of Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller, what they've been doing. Their efficiency starting to go up. What does that mean for their future? Because it's uncertain with Miles, and we want to see what kind of step up Brandon can take next year. We'll get to that in just a moment on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today you might want to say how you really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing constantly to where it's bothering you and you need to get that off of your chest. And if you're thinking about doing that, therapy could be right for you. It could be different for everyone. But if you're thinking about giving therapy a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. You can visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Walker, I don't know how frustrated you were watching Sam Hauser house the Hornets with three-point shot after three-point shot, but it was like, for me, it was like getting beaten by the ghost of Hayward's past. Like it was like being punished spiritually for trading Gordon Hayward away. His ghost of Hayward's past came back and beat us.
Yeah, and even in the Celtics jersey, you could see that a little bit more clearly too, right? Like, look, the thing about the teams getting hot from three, we were used to this very much so in the James Borrego era, but even so, like the Hornets don't defend the three well. They haven't defended the three extremely well all year long, so we're kind of used to it. And honestly, they don't even defend the rim all that well, which happens when Grant Williams is your starting center and Grant Williams is the only one that can go out there and help you, and you're just so small. Like Steve Clifford said it a few weeks back, look, we're tiny. Like we're going to be small for the rest of the season, and that's what indicated to us that Mark Williams was not going to come back, which I don't believe he's been shut down for the rest of the year yet. Even still, I think that's true. LaMelo was. We know about Seth Curry and Cody Martin, but that's not true for Mark Williams. Even so, yeah, you saw the lack of size. It's always going to hurt this team, and then when you don't defend the three, it's going to be a perfect recipe to get beat.
Now, someone may hear you say that, Walker, and ask themselves or scream into their podcast app, well, okay, they're tiny, but what does that have to do with the fact that they can't defend the three? And I would tell them that the Hornets have to help so much on defense. Well, there's two things. They have to help on defense so much that it ends up putting them into rotation a lot and gives more opportunities for teams that can move the basketball a lot. It gives them opportunities to, get open threes that way. They have to double a ton, and because they don't have a ton of defenders who have the size to go like 1v1 against Tatum. And as I said, Miles Bridges, having to play him at the 4, you can't put him on the team's best wing. So those doubles put your defense into rotation. And then this doesn't really have to do with size, but they just don't get back. They just don't run back hard a lot. And so then, again, you have a team like the Celtics who are going to press. Derek White was doing this possession after possession. Missed by the Hornets. He would run it up to half court before 4 Hornets were over the half court line. And then everybody's scrambling to get back, and you've just got no shot.
That's right. And when you need to help, especially with Nick Richards out, because you know how small you are with Nick Richards out there as your only center. Think about that's the reason Bolden is getting 15 minutes, and it's not like Steve Clifford wants to do that. So that's just the way that it's going with this team right now. Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Doug, you and I both talked about how they've actually been trending up with their efficiency here lately. We can go with Brandon Miller first, where we were discussing, hey, what's up with them? The shooting percentages, they're going down. The three-point percentage had been going down for quite some time. Not as much here lately, right? He gave a good shooting performance last night. He was 3 of 6 from the three-point range, 7 of 15 from the field. We've seen some better games from him lately. Just pulling up his game log, we saw him have a couple 20-pointers, the 30-pointer in that win against Cleveland. So, what we've seen from him lately has been encouraging to the point where you want to see that guy have as much momentum as possible going into year 2. And so if we have to have the slump in order to get the finishing on a strong foot at the end of the season, like ideally you would like to have strong stretches all over the place, but that's not how it works in the NBA. It's not how it works in life. And so if Brandon Miller is going to finish the season strong and give us something nice to remember, I think that's going to be much better. And he's giving us that right now, as long as he continues it through the next 10 games or so.
Yeah, for sure. People are wondering, like, what's going on with the Hornets offense? Why are they suddenly capable of scoring over 100 points a game when they were barely getting over the 90-point mark? And so much of it has to do with the fact that if you look at the trend lines over the past 5 to 10 games for Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges, they are both shooting the three ball better. Like it gets really simple. Your offense gets a lot better if your best players are shooting the three well. And I don't know necessarily that they're getting, all that much better quality of shot. They're just hitting them. And so the Hornets are in a much better position offensively. Man, there was one play this gives me the opportunity just to point out one play in particular from Brandon Miller last night where I was just like, he just has one of these plays almost every game, but sometimes it's at least once every couple of games where you go, man, just veteran move by Brandon Miller. And this play happened, I'm trying to pull it up here on my game log when this happened. So if you can vamp for a little bit while I find it, you may have noticed it too.
If you're looking for Brandon Miller or Miles Bridges game log, either one, I think both of them, one thing I notice about Brandon Miller too is if you look at, the 3-point shots going up, what else is going up is the accuracy at the rim, at least from what it's still not good, but if I remember correctly, it was not in the 36th percentile according to Cleaning the Glass. I'm trying to look at the filters, but it feels like that's starting to go up as well. Now, the frequency is not, right? Like, I think that's what's happening with Brandon Miller is the accuracy at the rim. That might be going up because he's taking easier shots close to the basket, which is a good thing, right? He's just not taking nearly as much. He's not going to force the contact and force the issue on that end. I remember him saying at a post-game press conference, he was asked about, hey, are you looking to get to the rim that much? It was a loss. He was kind of frustrated. He said, no. He's like, no, I'm not. He laughed it off. He's like, nah, I'm not going there. He's like, he's still going to play his game. But it does seem like he's hitting more of his shots at the rim, too, on top of, the 3-point shot going in is going to make a big difference.
That's Brandon Miller recognizing that the thing that Clifford talks about all the time is that good players play to their strengths. You don't try to play outside of what you're capable of doing. That's where players get into trouble. And so if Miller realizes, hey, I'm not strong enough to take this thing all the way to the cup and expect to have good results, then don't do that yet. So that's good. Here, I did find the play. So This was 3:39 left in the first quarter if you want to go back and check this out. Miller shot fake into a pass fake that baits Jason Tatum, who fouls him, but then Brandon Miller still gets it to go off of glass. I mean, just like it's one of those things where you go, that is such a veteran move. Because, look, I don't know that a lot of folks get Jason Tatum to make that foul. That's it just was a veteran move, savvy move to not only get the bucket, but first of all, the shot fake got the initial defender off, got the guy to drop, and then the pass fake baited Tatum into the foul. Just a great move. Brandon Miller just showcasing an array of talented ways to score.
Savvy. I think that's how you would describe Brandon, easily so. And if you wanted to go to Miles as well, same thing. Like Miles really started to play a lot better here recently. Doug, he's hitting threes at a higher clip right now. Not great last night, only 33%. And maybe this is more so on a volume, right? Because if you want to talk about maybe, if we combine all of these 3-point attempts, he might be shooting better. But you are still talking about a Golden State performance, 1 of 7. Cleveland, both games against Cleveland, 1 of 5 in each of those contests. But he's hitting better at the rim. And remember how many bunnies we've talked about how he's missed this year? Like, I think that's something that's starting to get better. I don't see as many, oh my God, missed layups, like with that kind of physicality. And that had been a problem. I mean, goodness gracious, probably through the first 60 games? Like, I'd say it's the last 10 games where I haven't seen that as much, but it was a real frequent problem for him. And we've gone over the numbers there in previous episodes, but the 3-point shot, like we're starting to see that get better, but overall the efficiency is up for Miles, Doug, because he's not missing as many chippies, and that matters a lot.
No, for sure. This was a bad time to bring that up because in this past game he did miss 2 bunnies, and he was so he hit the stanchion. He was so mad at himself for missing.
It hasn't been happening as consistently, I guess, but
no, you're right. You're right. The trend, if we're talking about the trend over the past 5 to 10 games, you're totally right. He is, and I think too, he has had more easy opportunities. He's getting up, he's skying. I mean, you saw the Trey Mann alley-oop to him where he just threw it down left-handed. I mean, the height that he can get on his jumps, it took him a while this season, but he's finally refinding that elevation that he had a couple of seasons ago. He's been missing that for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a physical thing, a confidence thing, a getting back into the groove kind of thing. But I think there was even mentioned it on Twitter. Someone was like, dude, you got to get up and dunk these things. And he's like, yeah, I got you. Like, it's not as if he doesn't understand that his game is not exactly looking like the game that almost got him a close to max salary. It just hasn't resembled that. And even though he's played better, Walker, scoring, and I'm just really zeroing in on his scoring efficiency, even though that has improved, it's only improving up to the position average for his position.
Yeah.
It's not as if now there was a time this season when he was playing above the position average, when he was, in terms of efficiency, was scoring at a rate that you would expect a second option to score at. And that was when LaMelo Ball was healthy. And so, look, if the organization wants to zoom into that period when he first came back from his 10-game suspension, and they want to look at that and go, okay, that's the Miles that we think, then maybe they're willing to shell out a few more dollars. But if they look at the entirety of the season, these efficiency numbers overall are troubling, but he is peaking at the right time.
Before we move on, how does that affect your thought process on signing him, giving him a contract? If this continues, is this enough to change your mind on what it is, or is the mind already made up on Miles because there's just so little time left?
Well, if we're just sort of talking about what the factors are on the court. He's done a lot for this team this season. Like, if you just take away the efficiency piece of his scoring, I mean, in terms of rebounding, assist, in terms of just total minutes logged, in terms of his defensive impact, when he is able to guard the best wing, he does it well. And there's just no question about it. There is a lot that he does for this team. And if you let him go to Detroit, or you let him go to Indiana, or you let him go to wherever, and you want to make the playoffs, Walker, you've got to replace that. And I don't think that replacing that is just like the guys that have been injured, Curry, Martin, Ball, Williams. I don't think you replace all of that with those guys. Yeah. You'd have to go out and find that somewhere. And I'm not sure, what does that mean money-wise? I have no idea. But that all the things that Miles does, it would be difficult to replace, and I think it's easy to talk yourself into the idea that, hey, if Ball is healthy, Miles is not taking these ridiculous mid-range shots that are horrible shots and that he's not going to make.
Yeah, the free agency market, it's not great. And if you're just looking at unrestricted free agents at forward specifically, because the idea might be to just spend your money not to replace Miles Bridges, but to try to capitalize on areas that this team isn't very good at, even with Miles Bridges on the squad. And so would that be more so three-point shooting? Would that be two-way players out there on the perimeter? Would that be more size? We just talked about Tyus Jones the other day. Tyus Jones is going to cost a lot of money. If you want to get the best backup point guard in the game to also play alongside LaMelo, those are going to be your options. So if you want to replace Miles, it's not going to be the classic money ball. We can't go find another Jason Giambi. We got to go get Scott Hatterberg. We got to go get old David Justice. And then we got to go get some of these other guys in order to get three to make up for one. And that's why you trade Carlos Pena. That's why you might get rid of Miles Bridges.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It's going to be difficult. What's really going to be difficult, because I think Miles is the third best player on this team. And there are going to be teams that may pay Miles Bridges to be the second best player on their team.
Yeah.
And then for the Hornets, you've got to say, do I want to pay this guy, second best player on the team, money to be the third, possibly, if you strike gold in the draft, the fourth best player on this team 3 or 4 years from now? Do you still want to be paying that? So, it's I think, to me, bringing him back makes all the sense in the world, just from a basketball perspective. It's just, I think, having to manage the money situation, particularly because your highest paid player in LaMelo Ball, I mean, you don't even know games played wise what you're going to even get out of that guy. So I don't envy Jeff Peterson. Okay, I don't envy this ownership group having to put all these puzzle pieces together. They're going to have to make very early in their tenure. They're going to have to make some very high risk types of decisions.
Let's move on. We have one more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. People were talking to you about it. I got a tweet that Spectrum Center looked like St. Patrick's Day with all of the Boston Celtics fans in attendance. Does it matter? How angry should we be about that as Hornets fans? We'll get to that in just a moment on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. That's great for procrastinators. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, you have everything from last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find MLB tickets, easy to buy and find MLB tickets, and really for every kind of event in your area. It's not just limited to sporting events. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, but also concerts, comedy, theater. You have flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing that allows you to toggle a feature showing the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, because that's frustrating when you think you're paying something and then you get to checkout and then, oh, wait, here's an extra $50 added on it. No, you know the price before you even get to checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. It's a good deal. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. Doug, I saw on social media there were plenty of people taking pictures of the crowd. One, not a lot of people in attendance, but the people that were in attendance, a lot of them were wearing green. And this is what we get when you see the traditional NBA franchises show up at the Spectrum Center, especially when you have a bad basketball team at the end of a bad season. And so we saw a lot of Boston fans at Spectrum Center last night. I got a tweet from my guy Herman. Shout out Herman Photography. He said it looks like St. Patrick's Day, and they've got a Let's Go Celtics chant that is overpowering anything else. Any of the like 3 Hornets fans that are trying to fight against it, nah, man, Celtics fans are going to win in that facet. So my question is, do we get mad at the fans for this? Because there are some people saying, oh, the fans need to show up. But Doug, I know how you and I kind of get down on this. Like, to me, it's all about the product being better, and then the fans will take care of themselves. If you have a better product, the fans will show up. We've seen this when they got to 500. That's it. Like average, mediocre. When you were mediocre a few years ago, the Hive was fun. Like, that didn't happen as easily. But when the Hornets season has been as terrible as it has been, yeah, I'm not going to get mad at the fans for not showing up and being able to overtake a Celtics crowd.
Well, it's that factor too, but it's also that Charlotte is a growing city, okay? When the Hornets were first here, well, first they were selling out the building to actual Hornets fans. But, this wasn't as big of a transplant city. There weren't people from Boston and New York and L.A. and everyone moving. Just the general population trends right now are East Coast, Northeast, and West Coast are moving to the South. And so there are a lot of people moving to Charlotte, a lot of people moving to the city that I live in, Nashville, from all over the country, from big cities. And so when you have that, they're going to bring their fandoms with them. And people from Boston, they don't suddenly become Hornets fans when they move from Boston. They still cheer for their Celtics. And the couple of times that Boston comes to Charlotte, yeah, they're going to hunt for those tickets. And if the Hornets were competitive, there would be season ticket holders that would be going to these games. Now, look, the hardcore fans, the hardcore Hornets fans, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast that live in Charlotte are going to these games. And that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And then when the team gets good, then you'll have your casual fans that have lived in Charlotte for a while or whatever and have families and want to take their kids to the game and have some reasonable shot of watching the Hornets win or have players on the court that are fun to watch. then they'll file in. There will be no problem putting Hornets fans in the seats, and you may even convert some of these other transplant fans into Hornets fans, but the product has to be there. And right now, again, these guys are playing better, they're trying hard, but this is not an exciting NBA product. It's fun for us to analyze, and we love it. And we're sickos. I mean, we're sick for a reason, folks, because this is not what you are supposed to be enjoying as an NBA basketball fan. Here's what I would suggest. If you do go to these games, talk to some of these Celtics fans, talk to some of these Clipper fans, and, maybe you get some insight onto, what these other teams are doing right, and get some intel and maybe share that. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation, but I don't get mad at it at all. I mean, it's just a sort of natural part of the process.
No, I will defend the Hornets fan especially as much as possible because we've seen it before. Again, like I think I'm glad the Hornets got to 500, not because I pulled for the team, but also because I'm glad that the fans show up where it's not just, even if you put a winning product, they're not going to care about it anyway. This fan base is hungry. They want success. They want it badly. They're still waiting, and they haven't gone anywhere. I'm sure some fans have, but they haven't gone anywhere to the point where they are going to be absent if you put a product out there worth watching. And when LaMelo Ball is drafted and he's such a star, and now you have 4 games above 500, guess what? That's when the hive was loud. And that's when there were a lot of people. I don't know where they ranked in attendance, but I know that I saw a bunch of Hornets fans in attendance pretty much every single night. I mean, it was a good showing. And so they have shown, if you do your job, then we'll give you the money. And if you don't do your job, then we're not going to give you the money. And I love that. I honestly think it's a great idea for fans. I keep doing what you're doing, to be honest with you. If you want to go, that's great. Please do that. But I have no problem with them not attending these games. And then you're right. The transplant part, it absolutely matters in a city like Charlotte.
And look, if that happens, if the Hornets do all of a sudden get better, and I want to clarify what get better means. Get better does not mean that I expect Hornets fans to pile into the Spectrum Center and muscle some of these other fan bases out if the Hornets win 45 games next season in the regular season. That's not what I'm talking about. The reason that Celtics fans and Clippers fans and all these guys, that the reason they pour into the Spectrum Center is because their team has a legitimate shot to go deep into the playoffs and make a run at a championship. I'll take run at a championship out of the race for a second, but look, this Hornets team has to get into the playoffs, be competitive, win a playoff series. That's when your casual fan will notice, because the team has been on national television. They will notice and say, "Oh, something's going on." What the Hornets have going for them is that they do have exciting potential players in LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, right? And so those two, if they reach their peak, if LaMelo can stay healthy and Brandon can continue his development, then you've got two players, that would attract opposing fan bases to come in and watch them, but also attract your fan base as well. So they've got that going for them. And also what they have going for them is there's not a lot of competition from the Panthers right now, and I'm not sure there will be in the next couple of seasons. We'll see with this new coach.
Yeah.
We'll see with this new coach. I mean, things could be brighter for them. But the Hornets have an opportunity in the next couple of seasons, if the Panthers do stay down, to take advantage of some of that vacuum.
That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when we release a new video. We're doing it every single day, so you do not want to miss out when we drop those episodes each and every day. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On 24/7 channel on YouTube. We have content for you literally every second. It's crazy. We're doing that. It's a big responsibility that Locked On Podcast Network is taking on for you. So make sure you go check it out and support it. Thanks again. Go check out Doug on his Substack as well, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.